Okay. And now okay? Okay. Uh, this is going to be a talk about Kinetuyuk. And we're going to start 31 years ago. So the year is 1991. We are standing on top of Kinetuyuk, the last site examined in the course of a 2-week-long archaeological survey conducted by Bilkent University. We know little about this site other than that it is the most prominent settlement mound in the narrow coastal plain north of Iskenderun. Veronica Seton-Williams noted one late Bronze Age sherd. Hermann Hellenkemper claimed it to be the classical period city of Issos, near which Alexander the Great defeated the Persian king Darius III in 333 BC. But 19th century historians were already proposing this identification. But no excavations have as yet taken place in 1991. No one knows anything precise about its habitation history. Marie-Henriette, who has written a PhD dissertation on Alalak Talachana in the mid-second millennium BC, hopes the site will yield information on the Middle and Late Bronze Ages, thereby complementing knowledge about Alalak in the plain of Antioch on the east side of the Amanus Mountains. Most of the pottery collected from the site surface during the 1991 survey will prove to be medieval. Launching excavations here with the hope of second millennium BC evidence is a gamble, but the gamble will be made and proved successful. Kinetuyuk was indeed occupied during the second millennium BC, but also earlier and later. A long history of settlement from Neolithic and Chalcolithic times on ceramic evidence and excavated architectural levels from early Bronze II to late Hellenistic, some 2,800 stratified years without break. After a millennium-long hiatus, the site was refounded in the Middle Ages when a fortress was built on top and occupied from the 12th to the 14th centuries. As we stood on the top of the site in 1991, we gave some thought to the environment. At least our survey's geomorphologist Sancar Ozaner conjured up for us a monumental canvas of tectonic events, uplifted mountains, a falling sea, braided rivers, and alluvial fans. But we were focused on the modern setting, which seems static enough. The narrow coastal plain, a straight coastline, the Mediterranean Sea, and behind us, the Amanus Mountains. Shipping terminals for oil and gas at the foot of the ancient site convinced us that Kinnet had always served as a seaport. How the site might inform us about the ancient environment, not to mention change over the centuries, was of secondary interest at that moment. That would change sharply as excavation got underway. Animal and fish bones and shells were routinely collected. Salima Ikram, upper right, would soon undertake their study together with Canan Çakırlar, here she is again, and Radovan Kabatyar. With the guidance of Delvin Samuel, a program of archaeobotanical research was put in motion. Soil samples were taken and passed through a flotation device built to Delwyn's specifications. Analysis is now carried out by Andrew Fairbairn and by Michaela Harding, whose honors thesis on agricultural economies in the face of environmental and political change, a case study from Iron Age Kinetuyuk, was completed in 2019. Marie-Rose Carr examined the modern plants growing wild on the site and documented change among them, even in the short term. Geomorphological research by Sancar Ozaner, followed later by Timothy Beach and Cheryl Luzader Beach, tracked the shifting courses of spasmodic, that is seasonal, rivers, creating bays and inlets suitable for harbors, and soil aggradation that buried settlement features in proximity of the mound. Soundings excavated during the 19th and penultimate field season in previously untouched terrain of the neighboring BP facility, shown here in yellow, on completely flat land between mound and sea that suggested erosional fill, yielded remains of harbor installations from the 5th and 4th centuries BC, seen on the right, to everyone's enormous surprise and to BP's chagrin. Sadly, government permission to take coring samples along the coast, a project proposed for the last 20th field season in 2012, was refused. Perhaps someday someone will carry on where we left off. Already on our survey, we realized that Kinetuyuk is located in Southwest Asia's second rainiest eco-niche after Turkey's eastern Black Sea coastal region, and shares its endemic botanical profile. It also occupies the wettest microregion of the Mediterranean. We would experience that firsthand with sudden rainstorms that burst forth periodically during our summer field seasons. Was the ancient town equally blessed with abundant water, or did the climate change from time to time, bringing periods of drought? No doubt yes to both questions, attested by Middle Bronze Age wells. And earthquakes. Hatay province sits atop north-south faults running along the Levantine coastline in the Dead Sea Valley, northward through eastern Anatolia. 3 plates, the African, Arabian, and Anatolian, coincide in the Gulf of Iskenderun. Kinet's location is marked here with a star. Although earthquake damage is not always evident in the archaeological record, we identified with a good deal of certainty several seismic destructions in Kinet's excavated levels. Such environmental issues are now routinely investigated at archaeological sites. An advantage that Kinetuyuk offers researchers is its long occupational history in a lively ecological setting. Thanks to the several thousand years of attested settlement here, changes in environmental conditions and adaptation strategies can be examined. This is a bonus that is unavailable to single period sites. Publications on the Kinet project's environmental and cultural contributions are listed on the department's website and continue to appear. What Kinet could not document so directly was its human landscape. Apart from late or post-medieval burials in the mound, a casual Hellenistic burial, and a more formal early Bronze Age one, no cemeteries were discovered for the site's occupational history. Nonetheless, their material cultures are distinctive enough to convey human activity by using an archaeological perspective and to define with reasonable accuracy the considerable changes that marked each of Kinet's major cultural moments.
Pause while we change speakers. The Kinet experience, in fact, actualized for us a systemic view of change, evolving in accord with a multi-dimensional complex diagrammed by the 2 Clarks, Graham Clark's interactive ecosystem of habitat and biome, 1953 on the left, to which David Clark would add the crucial vector time in 1978, moving the socio-cultural system along its inevitable route of transformation. Three simple examples, our reflections on change, will serve here to reflect on this weighty ecosystemic model. The first example involves change in archaeological practice through the introduction of new tools. The field seasons at Kinnet, 1992 to 2012, straddled the big developments in digital technology. When we started, everything was recorded manually: notebooks, registers, paper forms to fill out, thick paper tags. We had project computers, but for the first decade they were large and ran on electricity. We never took computers into the trenches. As a result, the records of the excavations are all paper-based, even if they are now scanned and shared among researchers. Second huge change was the arrival of the digital camera. Traditional film cameras necessitated caution and parsimony. One avoided taking too many when the stock of imported film had to last an entire season. In contrast, the digital camera allowed, starting in the early 2000s, multiple informal shots in the trenches, moment by moment. In addition to formal photographs of features and architectural levels after they were fully exposed and cleaned. Context could now be recorded much more effectively, and bad pictures could be retaken right away. In 1973 at Godin Tepe, Western Iran, we were encouraged to take Polaroid photographs for the same reason. But Polaroids had to be coated with a special liquid which reacted poorly in the hot and dusty environment of the trench. In principle, a good idea, but discouraging to apply. We also experimented with aerial photos. Devices included a ladder or a nearby gas tank from which the photographer had a good vantage point. And on the left, Turul Çakar in 1995, and the photo that he took from the top of one of those gas tanks. On two occasions, I took pictures from a private airplane based in Adana and piloted by the owner. Note the wing strut in the left picture. It was an exciting adventure. Various experts visited, each with a new technique. A camera attached to a kite failed from lack of wind, but a balloon controlled by remote control was a tremendous success. Our field seasons ended in 2012, a few years before drones simplified and improved the procedure. These are ordinary but valid examples of technological change in material culture, driving and enabling a new form of practice. The Kinnet experience also provided us clear examples of ecosystemic change through natural and human agents. The top of Kinnet's mound was planted with wheat until 3 generations ago, then left fallow after it was registered as a protected archaeological site. In our first season, the neighboring farmer brought his cows up here to graze, and vegetation growth was kept under control in an eco-friendly, homeostatic equilibrium. By the late 1990s, however, Kinnet's vegetation had been replaced by an aggressive grass on the right, whose seeds were airborne from the Western Mediterranean, specifically North Africa. The mature plants were unpalatable, the cows refused to eat them, and we resorted to size and human muscle against this colonizing invasion. Nature here was the obvious responsible agent, although it can be argued that human interference at the site was a secondary factor too. Finally, a template for how the human factor provokes material and environmental change is also visibly present at Kinnet and the commercial facilities established here when the Kirkuk to Ceyhan pipeline opened in 1978 and pre-pipeline environments are visible on the left with the arrow pointing to Kinnet and on the right in the 1980s. Like the others in the back of Iskenderun Bay, this pipeline and the site began by storing and redistributing crude oil during the 1980s. When the Gulf War in 1990 started, these companies expanded into LPG, brought in by ship and redistributed by truck. At Kinnet, high-pressure spherical drums for gas were installed in 1992 beside the cylindrical drums for oil, followed some years later by a gas bottling plant. And once again, the mound is visible there in the back with the orange arrow. This dramatic industrial landscape fits a pattern of precise events. Brodel's histoire événementielle. It likewise results from near and distant elements interacting on a geographic, social, economic, and political stage. Brodel called this middle level, conjoncture, loosely corresponding to Graham Clark's habitat and David Clark's socio-cultural system. The newly built landscape nonetheless also depends on environmental features that designated this place as a haven for sailors and shipping from earliest antiquity, integrating the long-term rhythm of the ecosphere with modern enterprise. It thus completes the ecosystemic picture of material culture as it takes shape and becomes transformed. Such are our reflections on the nature of change viewed from the lens of the Kinnet excavation experience. It has been our great fortune to realize them through the generosity and support of many institutions, foundations, and persons to whom we express our warmest thanks. We especially wish to recognize our gratitude to this country's Ministry of Culture and Tourism's General Directorate of Cultural Heritage and Museums and its annual representatives for the project's many years of field work. To Bilkent University for the exceptional backing it has offered us, and to colleagues, 3 decades of Bilkent students, and our Dirtjol, our local workers. After 2012, the project shifted operations to Kinnet North, that is Bilkent University, where it continues to thrive. A change in location, but a strong continuity of purpose. Thank you very much.